I don't want to say let's move on, but you guys ready for the next story that was actually a bit of a doozy when I saw it scroll across. When I ran into this one, I actually got it off Twitter. I can't remember if it was Lauren Southern or somebody tweeted, or it was Paul Joseph Wasserman. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna actually read that article and make sure it's legit. So heads up, fair disclosure, this is on the record. The title is a little bit fake newsy. Because when you get into the meat of the article, you realize that it's not exactly what they said it was. But liberal billionaire apologizes for funding false flag effort to link the Kremlin to a Republican in Alabama Senate race. Diving right in, liberal Silicon Valley billionaire Reid Hoffman issued an apology on Wednesday for funding a group that falsely tried to give an impression the Russian government was supporting Alabama Republican Roy Moore in last year's Senate election against now Senator Doug Jones. Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, is one of Silicon Valley's top donors to the Democratic campaigns and political action committees. In the last election cycle, he donated $7 million to Democratic groups, though his money also pours into non-traditional groups that aren't mandated to report their funding and often operate in the shadows. Citation needed. Fox News citation needed, to be fair. Come on. One such group is American Engagement Technologies, a firm run by former Obama appointee Mikey Dickerson. What a great name. Which received $750,000 from Hoffman and was part of the effort to falsely portray the Republican Senate bid as being supported by the Kremlin. So here we get into the quote-unquote apology, like that he did it, and it's not exactly true that he did it. Now, you have to draw a little bit of conclusions here that he was the main funder or one of the main funders of the group that did it. So and extrapolate from there, but he never said that he authorized it or anything like that in this apology.
Well, I didn't authorize it. I just, they used my money and used everything, and I had absolutely no clue, what I was funding, what I was giving money to. Because that makes perfect sense.
Well, right, but it's one of those things like it's technically correct, which is the best form of correct, so.
I find the tactics that have been recently reported highly disturbing. For that reason, I am embarrassed by my failure to track AET, the organization I did support, more diligently as it made its own decisions to perhaps fund projects that I would reject. Is that perhaps you would reject them, or perhaps that you wouldn't fund them? He said in a statement provided to the Washington Post, "I want to be unequivocal. There's absolutely no place in our democracy for manipulating facts or using falsehoods to gain political advantage," he added. I think the key part of this article, even as we go deeper into it, that spiked my interest so much is this does not remove an organization's ability to affect this without the upper class even knowing about it happening.
Exactly.
It doesn't keep somebody from putting false flags in the water for people to act like they're mines. So when you hear of Russian collusion and all this sort of, and how much evidence there is for it, well, here's an example of what seems to be a private organization, or some form of privately funded organization now affecting fake news, actually putting false flags.
Yeah.
Not surprised at all.
No, I'm not.
So when you hear the CIA has evidence or the FBI has evidence that so-and-so was tracked by Russia or influenced by Russia and all these fake news Russian hackers, you have to go, oh, they were Russian for sure, right? There's never been a case of an American agency that did something similar, right? Hoffman said AET went on to facilitate a secret project with a budget of $100,000. One participant in the project was Jonathan Morgan, the chief executive of New Knowledge, scary, a firm that wrote a report released by the Senate Intelligence Committee earlier this month about Russia's social media operations in the 2016 election and its efforts to hurt Hillary Clinton and help Donald. So these are actual people that have influenced government opinion on the 2016 allegations of Russian collusion.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. In a statement on Twitter, Morgan denied the project was aimed at influencing the election, which the Democrat won by 22,000 votes. This is referring to the Senate election. I did not participate in any campaign to influence the public, he wrote, saying the project goals weren't about supporting the Jones campaign. So just everybody denying the entire way down, despite everybody admitting that there was a project that happened. So who was the head of it? Did it just happen by accident?
Well, it just happened.
Basically, from what I'm understanding here, the official story is that they weren't trying to run an influence campaign. They were just seeing if they could emulate the same tactics that the quote-unquote Russian hackers were doing of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so what you're doing is you were doing something to see if you could do it.
But you're denying that you did it.
But you're denying that you did it.
Even though there's evidence you did it. Okay, got it. For sure. That
Got your hand in the cookie jar, but you're going to keep denying it. Okay.
Well,
No, I was just proving how easy it was for my little brother to get in there.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, but isn't the end like that? This is where you have to ask yourself: is it the end
There you go.
result-
Sorry. No, I was just showing little Timmy what not to do, Mommy. I promise.
Yeah. Isn't the end result of you trying to emulate the tactics that were? Wouldn't it actually just influence the campaign?
Yeah?
Like, so by you doing an experiment to see how it was done, you actually potentially did the thing that you were saying is bad.
It's just a social experiment, guys. It's just a social experiment.
Like
Johnny, yes, Papa. Rigging elections, no, Papa.
Oh, God, no.
The disinformation campaign was first revealed by the New York Times that obtained an internal report detailing the efforts. We orchestrated an elaborate false flag operation that planted the idea that the Moore campaign was amplified on social media by a Russian botnet, the internal report said. It also took credit for radicalizing Democrats with a Russian bot scandal after experimenting with many of the tactics now understood to have influenced the 2016 elections. The multi-million Senate Alabama race ended with Jones' victory over the embattled Republican who lost the support of the party amid the allegations of misconduct, becoming the first Democratic senator from Alabama in more than 20 years. Oh, so you got a big win out of that. Jones told Fox News that he's outraged over the reports detailing the efforts to portray his opponent as backed by the Kremlin. Oh, I'm sure you are, winner.
yeah.
Oh, I don't like to win this way. Are you going to give up? No.
Are you going to step down?
Calling for a federal investigation of the project. All right.
Sure.
Good. No, I'm good. I'm fine with that if it's legit.
Yeah.
Put your full weight behind that. Show you're an ethical person.
No, he's not going to at all.
You know he's not.
I'd like to see the Federal Election Commission and the Justice Department look at this to see if there were any laws being violated and if there were, prosecute those responsible, he said. These authorities need to use this example right now to start setting the course for the future to let people know that this is not acceptable in the United States of America.
See, here's the issue with this, though.
Well, the Russian bots were not breaking American laws either.
Exactly, yeah. Like, how do you, like, what law were they breaking, you know?
I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't. But the problem is that the Russian bots putting out fake news would not be breaking the law inherently either just by doing it that way.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if they broke the law or not, friggin' Jones. It matters that you won off of underhanded tactics.
Right. Which have now been emulated, and everybody and their brother is going to try to do this now. That first off, this report's been leaked, which means that the full tactics, the full ideas of how to do it are completely out there in the wind.
What's that? Are you saying we're going to see more gay ops? Is that what's going to happen now?
Well, influence campaigns have always been a tactic of the espionage and intelligence networks of all. This is nothing new. This is absolutely nothing new, right? It's evolving into the ideas of social media. They're literally weaponizing the algorithms of Facebook and Twitter and shit like that to allow it to specifically target with specific pieces of information that it gives you access to someone's brain that you never had before on mass scales. Like the fact that we didn't see this, the fact that people are surprised by this is the shocking part, not that it's actually happening at all. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's this nonsense has to be stopped. Like, you have to, like, I don't know how to stop it. Maybe the best course of action to stop it would be something like demonstrating that it exists. And I'm like, no, these idiots are actually doing something to try to get into your head a little bit.
oh, there's another way to stop this too, and it's make sure that people don't have to go to Facebook and Twitter and other things like that to use and have these algorithms turned against them.
Right.
But that's skipping ahead to some of the stories that we've arranged for this TEL. It's got to be a catchier acronym down the way we can use.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Welcome to the Ember Live, where we tell you what's up. So, anything else on this story before you guys want to move on?
Not really.
Nah, not
So-
surprising at all.
Next story is slightly a nothing burger, even though it kind of made news. It's your ever, and this is just a common thread. Just going to demonstrate it for future, because if the situation was reversed, you would see Fox News reporting this about a Democratic senator, and this has happened before. This happens during the Bush administration, when Bush lost control of Congress and the Democrats controlled the House, not the Senate, but the House. And then you had people demanding term limits during that period. Then during Obama, when he lost control of the House, then you had people screaming you had Democrats screaming for term limits on Republicans. And now the shoe's on the other foot again, and it comes up again, and it's the GOP against the Democratic Party in the House. So this is, when I say this is a nothing burger, it is a little bit current events, especially if it goes through. If this goes through, it would be huge. I'm not saying don't expect it to go through, but this is at the time, this is par for the course. Republican Senator Ted Cruz and Republican Representative Francis Rooney proposed a constitutional amendment on Thursday that would impose term limits on members of both houses of Congress. The amendment, co-sponsored by Senators Marco Rubio, Mark Lee. You see a lot of R's coming up, don't you, folks? There's a lot of R's. And David Perdue would restrict senators to 2 6-year terms and House members to 3 2-year terms. Jeez, you couldn't have wrote that any better.
That's the one thing I've been noticing with these articles. Aren't they supposed to have editors?
Read that out loud to yourself without pausing distinctly. Would restrict senators to 2 6-year terms and House members 2 2-year terms.
I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, maybe a couple commas in there would help. A similar amendment was proposed by Cruz in January of 2017. For too long, members of Congress have abused their power and ignored the will of the American people, Cruz said. Term limits on members of Congress offer a solution to the brokenness we see in Washington, D.C. It is long past time for Congress to hold itself accountable. I urge my colleagues to submit this constitutional amendment to the states for speedy ratification. The concept of term limits has gained traction in both parties, notably former Democratic Republican Representative, Beto O'Rourke, a potential 2020 hopeful who ran against Cruz for the Senate, has called for term limits for Congress earlier this year. President Donald Trump has voiced his support for term limits for members of Congress, tweeting in April last year that he met with bipartisan group of lawmakers and he endorsed their efforts. So this isn't like my show and my personality. I'm still out on this one for Congress. I get it for senators because it's such a restricted position where you get 2 per state and that sort of thing. It makes a lot of sense. As a congressperson, you do not have the same impact that you do as president of the United States. Like when the term limits were installed, it was because FDR had basically reshaped the government and the federal government completely, including the legislative branch.
Yeah, when he was elected for 4 terms in a row.
I thought it was 3.
Wait, what?
No,
Yeah,
he was elected for 4. He just didn't make it.
Yeah, he keeled over. It finally got him.
Aw.
Yeah.
Also, wait a minute. Sorry, no, that's for after the show. My brain just broke for a second. Oh God.
Yeah.
No, that is very surprising. I honestly hope this happens. I want to see Trump actually put it into where, term limits. I want to see just the House and all that. I want to see, a political death.
Most people would use the example, and I guess I'm going to have to argue against both of you a little bit here, is you have examples like Ted Kennedy and stuff like that. Oh, they're too famous in the House and stuff like that. But it also means that they're really good at whipping the party, which could be a good and a bad thing. But like I said, I'm on the fence with it just because this could open up the idea of third-party candidates as well. It makes the races a little bit harder. It actually gives them an edge in. Because now instead of it always being that Democrat versus that Republican, or you know what I mean, like that Democrat versus a Republican and vice versa, now after 2 years, it's anybody's game. Now people need to hear new arguments.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I want to see political death to where, like, the same people can't keep getting elected. It's like,
or you can't have
thing
people
ends.
like Strong Thurman in there for 50 fucking years.
But then look at it the other way. You have people like, whether you're on the left or the right, I mentioned Ted Kennedy. He's a lion on the left. You have other people like John McCain.
Yeah, and
who was really good at being a moderate in the Senate, who actually stopped and argued a lot against a lot of bad things that were going on before.
Wait, John McCain, bomb Iran? We talking that McCain?
I didn't say he wasn't passionate.
I'm just saying, I don't know. Me, I absolutely despise him. I thought of him as a terrible
I don't want to
being.
say maybe your age speaking up here, but you really need to look into the heyday of McCain and Lieberman. They were basically the people that would stave off destruction between the parties by being able to jump in between bad legislation, really bad legislation.
Yeah.
All right, I'll
And
check him out.
McCain's tenured in there. He was
literal Satan.
Lieberman was good at all the things McCain was not. They were deepest friends. There's even an argument that could be made that McCain should have selected Lieberman as his running mate over. Oh God, I can't remember
the stupid moose hunter. What
the Alaskan chick?
Yeah.
Why can't we remember her name? Chat, help out. Chat.
Yeah,
quick.
chat.
I can see Russia from my house. Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin. Oh my God.
I kept wanting to call her Tina Fey.
Well, that's because
I'm in the United States and I just remember her as Tina Fey or Lisa Ann, if you get the reference.
Well,
but that's besides the point.
Tina, like when Sarah Palin busted into the political
Don't
scene.
say bustin' right after I mention Lisa Ann. So anyway, the argument was made that he should have actually selected somebody that he had worked with in the past to both get good legislation in place and also stop bad legislation in place. And it would have actually forced people to actually consider the fact why they were voting for Obama, because Lieberman was a very principled Democrat who was really willing to do bipartisan legislation with McCain. But McCain went too hardcore conservative to appeal to his base. They almost could have formed a new party. There's a lot of things that could have, should have, would have happened then. But you do have an example of, like, for every Ted Kennedy that you may or may not agree with, you do also have a John McCain, who there are countless times where, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, you were hoping that McCain would be the voice of reason.
Again, I never fucking saw that, but again, you're right. That's probably me just
Perfect
being,
example is what he did with the Affordable Care Act. Like, he did that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look into this because I'm gonna be honest with you all. I actually have no clue on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, dig into it. He's not as radical as he was a firebrand. I don't want to invoke too much historical patriotism here, but he harkened back to the Thomas Jefferson style of politician.
If you say so,
if he knew he was right, he didn't care who he pissed off in the process.
Even his own party had no issue.
Which is where you had him partnering up with Lieberman all the time, because Lieberman was the soft-spoken, I don't want to say Machiavelli, but he was the guy that could actually go and negotiate for this stuff. Whereas John McCain could pound his fist in public and get the Americans to... He was a war hero, and Lieberman was a principled Democrat. They met in the middle, and they did some good work together. So, yeah,
right.
So that's why I'm still sitting on the fence. I don't think it would be a bad thing if it passed, but I also don't know if I can fully support it as the greatest idea in the history of the Congress.
Yeah.
We good on this?
Oh, just reminding people,
I have nothing else to say because we go into John McCain, and I'm just like, duh.
Yeah, I mean, because we could also talk about how Ted Kennedy, killed people, but
it didn't go to jail for
and so just a reminder, this is by fair perspective, even though it's got all these celebrity Republicans backing and everything. This is nothing that hasn't been seen before. It's a bit of a nothing burger. Yeah. Though if it does truly have bipartisan support, there's a chance it could pass.
I hope it does.
Also, it's supported by the Zodiac Killer too. So
yeah,
I was going to say, careful, man. You're going against the Zodiac Killer. He might leave a fucking mark.
Hey, little Scorpio, let me whisper in your ear. I got some legislation you might want to hear.
Oh God, no.
Wait till you see my bill.
Ted Cruz, no.
All right. So